Welcome, welcome. This is GonzoLink. It is my great pleasure to have online Pat Contri, aka Pat the NES Punk. He's a reviewer of, well, NES games. He's a super cool guy who's agreed to answer a few questions for me. And, well, how are you doing, Pat?
Thanks for having me, GonzoLink. I'm doing pretty well today.
Right on. Well, I guess we should just get started. What was it that got you inspired to do reviews in the first place?
Going back to college, when I was in college, I actually did a feature-length film in college, and I did some short films after that, including some business videos. So I had some sort of film knowledge, slight knowledge to begin with, and I've been collecting, or had been collecting NES games and retro games since about '99 or 2000. So I kind of had the basis of the background of the knowledge of the film, I thought, in retro gaming. And then YouTube got big around 2006, 2007, and then I started seeing a bunch of reviewers come up and try to review games, and most of them are terrible. Hate to say it. You had a lot of these reviewers on people just playing games on emulators that they just downloaded that day using really cheap microphones that came with their gateway computers from 1999. And so I figured I actually had some knowledge of some of the games, and I had a little bit of film knowledge, so I don't think I could do that much worse than them. So I gave it a go.
Yeah, well, judging by your reviews, you definitely seem to have a pretty firm grounding and knowledge of like a lot of retro games and nostalgia of Nintendo and that sort of thing. And yeah, it would seem that your reviewing style is pretty much like highlighting the good stuff, or like the good part of nostalgia, as opposed to a lot of reviewers who just are in it to hate and try and gain viewers that way. Because from my view, it's a lot easier to hate on something than it is to to like something and give reasons for why you like it.
Absolutely. It's you always get more attention if you're negative. That's like a primal sort of I guess feeling. Look at the news on TV. It's 99% bad news. Then they end the night with one good story, but people tune in to see the car wrecks and see the tragedy. So yeah, and that's what I was seeing on the internet was a lot of just really negative reviews for the sake of negativity. With James Rolfe's videos, though, he has an art form with it. He's playing a character. He's not just railing on games with no reason. He's actually doing something with it. But 99% of the angry reviewers, they're just being angry just to honestly try to just kind of raise their emotions for no reason or overdoing it. And so I'm kind of rambling right now. But going back to your point, yeah, I want to really highlight, really to me, the unique aspects of the system in games that are sometimes overlooked, which could be good or could be bad. I did a review of Action 52, which wasn't so much me being extremely angry, but I was very frustrated, obviously, with the game, as anyone would be for that type of game.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed is that even when you get like when you're not happy with a game, you're never like out and out angry. You're always like more annoyed or like disappointed or something.
Yeah, and again, I think when you see these angry reviewers, I think most of the time it's BS. I think it's either an act or they're trying to just get attention for themselves by going, "Oh wow, this is making me so angry. I'm so upset." Ah. And it's a Nintendo game. Relax. It didn't punch your mom in the gut. It didn't throw your kitten against the wall. So what are you getting so upset and angry about? Again, if you're playing a character being angry, that's one thing. But I think a lot of these reviewers that came along, we're talking 2007, 2008, and even some today, it's just not only a wasted emotion, but it's a fake emotion. And I think that in the long run, viewers understand what they're seeing if it's not authentic. If they see someone that's just really being angry about games, and again, if it's not obviously an act like James is doing with Angry Video Game Nerd, if they can tell if someone's just faking it. And I think in the long run, it hurts the person because they're not being honest with themselves. But I think the viewer is not coming away with an honest sort of view of the game. And that's one of the other reasons I wanted to get into it because, for example, I'd see a review of a game like Three Stooges for Nintendo, which I had as a kid, and you would see people saying, "Oh, this is the worst game ever." And you know what? It's not the worst game ever. It may not be an outstanding game, but to me, it's a solid game. And that's why it was one of the first games I reviewed to kind of show people that there's sort of a three-dimensional view to these reviews. Almost nothing is really extremely bad or extremely good. Most of the games are in between somewhere.
Right, and going back to sort of what you were talking about, James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd, who was pretty much like the genesis of a lot of internet reviewing that goes on, pretty much for like the past 5 years almost.
Yes, he was largely the genesis of video format reviewing. Maybe not internet format, but definitely the video format of video game reviews.
Yeah, like stuff on YouTube and all that, and he pretty much like opened the floodgates for a lot of people to come. And something that I've kind of noticed about his character is the character of the angry video game nerd is someone who gets really really angry at video games because it's sort of like that thing where if you spend money on a bad video game, or like if you rent a bad video game from the store, then you just got to beat it. You got to play it for all it's worth because you spent your nickel on this game, and damn it, you're going to get your money's worth even if it kills you.
Yeah, for me though, as a kid, and for James, I mean, what you saw, I think James he had a video where it showed him being angry when he was like 6 or 7, getting Nintendo, and that's hysterical. That's how he really was. I think obviously he's a grown man now. He grew out of that sort of reaction, but that's what you see sort of in his videos now. That's sort of a primal sort of rage, being like almost like the game has taken you for a ride. But when I was a kid, I was more depressed when I saved up allowance money for 6-7 months. Went to Electronic Boutique, bought the game, then was sitting in front of like, oh my god, did I just waste 6 months of allowance on this? And it was almost like it almost never lived up to the hype of what you built up in your mind when you were just trying to save that money, and you looked at the Nintendo Power preview and you talked to friends about the game, and then when you buy the game, most of the time it's like, wow, this kind of fell short. So for me, it was more being depressed. If you rented a game, that's the reason I actually rented and beat more games than owned games. One, because it was a lot cheaper, but again, if you rented a game and didn't like it, it only cost you back in the day like $3 to rent a game for like 3 days. And so you could play through it if it was bad and still beat it, or not play it and just return it. So you had a lot less was at stake, or a lot less was being risked there.
Yeah, I never really owned too many games myself back in the day. I did a lot of renting myself, and that's actually really cool because when you rent a game, it also gives you the opportunity to like experiment and take a chance on something that you might not have otherwise have bought, and sometimes you can find a real diamond in the rough that way.
Exactly. I mean, it's so much different, the gaming culture now versus back then, because back then it really was you went over to your friend's house almost every day to share games, because collectively your collections would be, if you had 5 friends and you all had 20 games, your collection was really 100 games, because you would share games, borrow games with your friends, go over to the house. So you grew to know the games almost more so because you were sharing it with your friends at the same time. But yeah, with the renting, it was even crazier because you can be renting multiple games at one time, across friend groups, and you would never buy, or at least our friends would never buy a game like Marble Madness, but we would rent it and love it for those few days that we got it, or say a sports game, say a game like a Tenjin game, where like, let's see, what are these weird black cards? Okay, we'll rent Shinobi and play it, and beat it, or we'll rent the the Tenjin Tetris even before the Nintendo Tetris came out, and we loved that. So it was a lot different time, because obviously you didn't have the internet back then, and even Nintendo Power didn't either tell you the whole story or gave you an incomplete picture of what the game was going to be like until you actually played it. So yeah, the rental stores, the VHS rental stores, that was just, I couldn't imagine being a gamer back then without that. It was so much learning that was experienced just through rentals.
Yeah. All right. So going back to your reviews, I just got to ask, what are some of your favorite reviews?
Favorite that I've done?
Yeah, that you've done.
Favorite or ones that I'm most proud of, let's just say.
Yeah.
I really like the ones that I, to myself, give a very, I think, clean review. I don't try to exaggerate too much, or I don't miss anything. Let's see. And plus the ones, obviously, I put a narrative into, I'd say now, most of my videos, for better or for worse, depending on who you ask. I remember back when I started, people were like, "What's with this thing with your girlfriend?" And just do the reviews, dude. We don't need that other crap. And I remember saying, I think there's a method to my madness. Just be patient. And that was like 2 years ago. Um, but I think I really enjoy. One of my favorites is probably the Panic Restaurant review.
Oh yeah.
For a lot of reasons. I think it's a game that most gamers, especially nowadays, never even heard of, and it's an excellent NES game. And I think I did a pretty good job just capturing the feel of it, of the game, and what it really felt like to play it and go through it, besides giving it a decent review. And plus, the narrative surrounding the game I thought was, at least to me, was heartfelt because that was the last video I shot in New Jersey before I moved. And so the ending of that kind of was, I thought, semi-dramatic. Hopefully it wasn't too too dripping with cutesiness, but I got to make out with someone, so there you go. Other than that, though, I was pretty proud of the last two I just did, just because they were in such a short period of time. The Christmas special I did was from writing to basically conception, writing to editing to shooting to editing within about 8 days, and for like a 20+ minute video, for me that's not simple because I have a full-time 9 to 5 job. So just be able to get that done was good. And the last one I just did with Nintendo World Championships, I really liked. I liked how that one got back to my older reviews, that they weren't too long in terms of just covering it, not being overly dramatic. But then, of course, at the end, I had to tack on a story. Whether or not it was necessary is up to you. But I enjoyed how that one came out as well.
No, yeah. Your last one was really good, especially considering the history of the Nintendo World Championship and the Nintendo World Championships cart, and just how it really is the holy grail of video game collectibles now.
Yeah, and I sort of straddle this line, I think, more so compared to other game reviewers, in that usually you see reviewers either being focused only on the games themselves or being focused only on the collection or collecting the games. I think, bridge the gap between those two because I am both a gamer and a collector. So I kind of straddle that sort of line where it's like, okay, I can explain the games because I play the games and know about them, but also I know about the collecting the games and how hard they are to find and what they're worth and how to go about getting them. And plus, because I have the history behind that as well. So I think I'm doing something unique versus a lot of other reviewers.
Right. All right. So changing the subject just a little bit, are there any reviews that you're ashamed of?
I wouldn't say I'm ashamed of. I mean, dancing in your Mario boxer shorts, if that doesn't shame you, nothing will. I thought, looking back, my first quote-unquote negative review was Ultimate Stuntman. And looking back, I think I was a little too harsh on the game. I think when I first sat down and played that, I thought, wow, this is really going to be something special. I just come off the Top Secret episode review, which really, the Top Secret episode review was the first sort of review, I think, where I kind of found my footing and kind of established a sort of style or tone, I'd say consistently throughout after that. That would be my fourth video, technically, or fifth video that was. But yeah, once I started playing Ultimate Stuntman, it had, like Top Secret episode, it had multiple gameplay types, but they were all below average to me. And so I think I kind of hit it, I think, a little bit too hard. So that one I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't think I could do a review like that again. Because I think that one, not that I was dishonest, but I think I went a little over the top on some of my criticisms of that.
Okay. All right. So changing the subject once again, back in October, you did something quite extraordinary for the 25th anniversary of the NES, which was for 31 hours, I believe. You played every single NES game in existence, more or less, or like every single licensed game.
Every game, licensed, unlicensed, except for one game which we couldn't get working. That was Stunt Kids, but I ended up playing that a few weeks later once I got a new version of the cart. But yeah, we played every single game, and on the hardware too, not on emulators.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, not just in that you were able to go for 31 hours and end up surviving, but yeah, I mean it really is amazing just how many games that you have in your collection. And I got to ask, what drove you to collect NES games and NES memorabilia to a larger extent?
I'll just start by saying that not only it didn't really show. Okay, it showed that I have an insane amount of hoarding going on in my life, but it also showed the diversity of the NES sort of library. And that, I'll be honest, I hadn't played half the NES games before that marathon. I was amazed by some of them that I found. One game, Eliminator Boat Duel, that's now probably has to be in my top 20, 25 NES games, and that's a game no one's heard of. And Ian, who works in a game store, he never played it before, and we were just astounded by how good that game was. And again, if we didn't do the marathon, we would have never discovered that. But getting back to your original question, why do I collect the NES?
Yeah. Why
It was my first console. So when I got it I got it Christmas of 1987. So I mean that's what I was used to. That's what has the fondest memories for me. And that's as a kid, that's the games I had. I had the most games for that system if you don't count the computer, the IBM PC that we had at the time. So I guess it's always associated, nostalgia, childhood, happiness. They kind of all run hand in hand somewhat. And so yeah, that's why I kind of love the NES. Well, by the time I got to the Super Nintendo, I was drifting away from consoles because by the early '90s, the computers were so far more powerful than most video game systems at that point.
Yeah, PCs definitely held the edge over consoles for a while, but it seems like consoles are starting to catch up. Although it's still debatable as to whether or not as to who has the most processing power.
In theory, though, if you really want to get technical, a console will never be more powerful than a computer.
Right.
Because nowadays consoles are just computers. It used to be they were so far different, but now you have NVIDIA doing the chips, and they do the chips for your video cards and your computer. And plus, a computer you can upgrade every year if you want to. You can always be cutting edge with the computer. While console life is usually 5-6 years, you have to wait.
Right.
Next generation.
Yeah, you can keep building your computer, and you can keep updating it to keep up with the times.
Yeah, it'll cost you a ton of money, but you can do it. I mean, if you're looking at a cost ratio, you want to go for a console if you want a high-end system. If you want a high-end, state-of-the-art computer system, usually at any one time that'll run you $800 to $1,000, depending on how frugal you are and how, I guess, how top of the line you want to go.
Yeah. Moving back to consoles, you're not just a big fan of the NES, but also of the TurboGrafx 16.
Yes.
Yeah, and you had a pretty interesting story as to how you first came upon the TurboGrafx 16. Would you care to recount that?
Sure. It was, let's see, fall of 1990, and our New Jersey sort of syndicated newspaper, the Star Ledger, in the comic section it was probably like September, October of 90, they had a contest, a video game like trivia contest sponsored by NEC, and you'd fill it out, the questions. There were various questions about what type of character is Bonk. It was like asking questions about Double Dragon, asking questions about, a Nintendo game. So it was kind of a mishmash because then, Nintendo was dominant by that point. By 1990, not even close. They probably had a 90% market share by then. And so I filled out the questions, I mailed it away, and thought, okay, well that's cool. I never thought something would come of it. But then that Christmas, a week before Christmas, my parents gave me this, it came in the mail, notarized mail, a TurboGrafx 16 system. So it was kind of like, wow. So that was really my first sort of. That was like the best Christmas ever because of that. Because it was still such a new system, and it was more advanced than the Nintendo was. And the Genesis was still fairly new as well, and no one really had the Genesis really yet. Some kids did, but it was still mostly Nintendo. And TurboGrafx 16, to us, was a 16-bit system, so it was kind of like, wow. So I had that a full year before I got the Super Nintendo, which came out, Christmas of 91. And so, yeah, I don't think I would have owned the TurboGrafx 16 if it wasn't for that quirky contest.
Yeah, I mean, the TurboGrafx 16 kind of got a bum rap when it came out, and that nobody really seemed to know that it existed.
Yeah, as I went through my Christmas video, just a combination of the marketing and just not getting the word out properly, and not having really the best eye-catching games at the time. It was a bad combination of factors.
Yeah, I mean, I can actually remember playing it myself once, and that was when I was over at a friend's house. And it was so brief that I didn't even realize I was playing on a different system. I mean, I knew something was amiss, but looking back on it, I was like,
something was amiss.
Well, I mean, something like that. I was not playing Nintendo, and I wasn't playing Sega, and I was like, what is this? This is
some sort
something.
of hybrid system, some strange sort of neutral system.
I know, some sort of intermediary party where, we can escape the console wars.
I honestly knew one other kid that owned it besides me,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he was like the rich kid that parents won the lottery who lived like in a mansion
Uh,
on the other side of town. Like that was it. It was me and him somehow, and he even had the Turbo Express, which I never had as a kid because that was obscenely expensive. It was like $300 when it came out, and so I was very very jealous of that.
Now, the Turbo Express, that's the handheld system, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and that's an amazing that's an amazing system in and of itself because um, it's a handheld system that plays the actual TurboGrafx 16 games.
Correct.
And
And that kind of the reason they could do that was because the TurboGrafx 16 in Japan was a PC engine, and if you see the PC engine in Japan, it's an extremely small system. It's I think still the smallest console ever made. It's only about it's like a cube that's like 6 by 6, very small. It's extremely small, and for some stupid reason, when it came to the U.S., they made it a lot bigger than it needed to be. They made it like a bigger console, I guess, to look like the Genesis or to make it bigger like the Nintendo. They should have kept it small. I think keeping it small would have been a cool little marketing ploy. But wow, look at we have all this power packed into this little cube right here, almost like the GameCube before it was. That one's not really a cube, but almost. And so that's why it wasn't probably hard to get all that hardware into the Turbo Express because the Turbo Express wasn't that much smaller than the PC engine. The guts of that system are really tiny.
isn't it like a 16-bit system that uses like an 8-bit processor or something?
It has a 16-bit graphics processor, but the actual engine is 8-bit.
I guess that would mean that it takes like a significantly smaller amount of hardware to operate the games.
Maybe I don't know that much about it, but I just do know that if you look at a PC engine, it's such a tiny, cute little system,
Yeah.
and they just made it 4 times the size in America for really no reason.
So in your Christmas special, which was when you talked about the TurboGrafx 16, you said that you had every game in your collection aside from Magical Chase, and I got to ask, what's the allure of Magical Chase, and what makes it such a collector's item?
The allure of Magical Chase is that it's very hard to find. It's not the hardest to find TurboGrafx 16 game. Basically, the last year that TTI Turbo Technologies Inc., I believe, they basically took over the U.S. operations from NEC. They came out with like those last run of games the last year about. They had, let's see, Magical Chase. They had the Dungeons and Dragons game Order of the Griffin. They had Hero Tonma and a few others, and they're just very, very scarce. You can't come across them. And so I guess how Magical Chase stands out is that it's a shooter, and so TurboGrafx 16 is probably the most famous system for shooters, since there's like 25 excellent ones. It's a very cute game. It's a shooter that has a personality. You're a witch, and you have these cute little star guys helping you out, and you're shooting spells. And it's just really fun. It's really fun, and the fact that couple that with the fact that it's extremely hard to find makes it quote unquote holy grail that's actually worth the money to get. Unlike a game like Stadium Events that to me is virtually, I don't want to say it's worthless, but it's not worth the cost that it goes for because that's just world-class track meet, and it's not a good game anyway. But Magical Chase is a really fun game. So you mix that all together, and then people that get that game don't want to give it up. So if you look on eBay any one time, you'll find that game sometimes more often than a game like the Hero Tonma, which I brought up before. But Hero Tonma will go for like 10 times less. So it's just a strange situation where it's kind of not that it's all hype, but it's just I guess it's just worth holding on to, and no one really wants to let it go once they have it.
Yeah, that seems to be the way with a lot of. Well, I don't want to say a lot of collectibles because I personally don't collect myself, but that does seem like something significantly different from something like Stadium Events that you mentioned, which it literally is just a completely different game with a different name that they only made like a few prints of, and now collectors just made it worth so much more than it really is worth.
Yeah, if I could almost see if Stadium Events was a really good game or even a different game, but it's not even a different game that's available in the library. So That's really more the hype to me, stadium events. And I've railed about that on there's a website called NintendoAge.com, which is like the hardcore Nintendo collectors, like even some are even more hardcore than I am. And I just kind of look at that and kind of argue sometimes like stadium events that if no one would ever even bring that up in conversation if it wasn't hard to find.
Right.
It
And
just even come up.
yeah, and I mean a lot of collectibles. I mean, like the main reason why a lot of games are as highly sought after, a lot of collectible games are as highly sought after as they are, is because of their rarity. But I mean, there's a significant difference between something like stadium events and something like the NWC cart. I mean, because the NWC cart represented something an important part of gaming history, whereas stadium events is just a game that has a different name.
Yeah, Stadium Events represents a game that was just discontinued and pulled because Nintendo bought out the idea for it. So, wow, whoopee. To me, that's kind of like, that's like almost like if you had a Super Mario Brothers game and it was pulled, but they came out with, I don't know, Super Jumpman, and it's just a different label. Would that be worth $1,000? I don't know. To me, it doesn't make any sense, but to a lot of people, that's what they like. That's what they want to pay, so let them.
Well, that's just how some people are. All right, so moving on. You recently went to MagFest, the Music and Gaming Festival. I gotta ask, just what was that like?
Well, funny you say. My video just came out today with it, but it was very enjoyable. It was also very tiring because I was just meeting a lot of people. Some fans was just I was a fan of some of the people that I saw there. Some from other websites, other reviewers, catching up with people, and it was just a whirlwind of just. I almost felt like I wish there was less scheduled or less to try to see because I wanted to actually sit down and try to play a lot of games. But it's good experience just because it's bringing together the gaming, members of the gaming culture and just just having fun, which I think was what makes the gaming culture so good is that I think at the end of the day it's about just having fun. There's no pretensions about that. There's no hidden agenda. You get together, you meet people. What bonds you is the fact that you enjoy this sort of hobby together. And so that's what I think I enjoy the most about is that you go there and you don't. There's no drama really, and everyone's just there to have fun, kick back, and enjoy a few days together.
Yeah, although I'm sure there are some who would disagree with you on that fact and argue that gaming is indeed serious business.
Well, if you're making money through it, it is, but not if you're just playing the games.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. So you went representing RetrowareTV.com, did you not?
I did.
How did you come to be associated with them?
I became associated with them. Another video producer, recommended that I give them a yell or a shout out just because. And at that time, this was summer of 2010. I was sort of kicking around, and not that I was frustrated, but I was sort of like I was kind of like nomadic. I didn't have a home on any one website. I had become close to becoming a feature a couple of times on websites, and then also I was kind of just featured on very small websites, or I guess they were just showing my videos. But I was sort of just kind of like a loner, and so I got in touch with Lance from Rushware TV. He's one of the founders, and he was like, I sent him a few videos, and he's like, wow, these are really good. I'd never heard of you before. That's usually what I hear from everyone that never heard of me. And then I became a member of the site soon after that.
Cool. Right on. Just discussing other sites that you're affiliated, well, somewhat with, I guess. I actually first saw you when you were featured on G1 Submission Sunday on Screw Attack. When your GoGo 13 video was featured.
Oh yeah, that was March of 2009. It's
Yeah.
2 years ago almost.
I know it's crazy.
Scary. I'm getting...
And also, you seem to have a pretty, I guess you could say, functioning relationship with the Angry Video Game Nerd with James Rolfe. So, and also, Screw Attack hosted your NES marathon when you were doing it. So, I was just wondering what your affiliation with Screw Attack was, if any at all.
I have no official affiliation with Screw Attack, but I guess on good terms with them. They're very cool people. Craig has been nothing but nice to me for the most part on this website. Chad's really cool. Jared's really cool. Destin is really cool. We kind of have like this little combative relationship with each other on screen, so that's cool. But yeah, it's I'm just sort of I guess I was loosely affiliated with them. It's funny because some people like Noah Antwell or Spoonie, he thought I was a member of Screw Attack when I wasn't, and I think it's just because a lot of my videos were spotlighted on there and they threw them up there, and I guess they appreciated what I was doing. So that's why I think some people thought that, yeah, I was associated with Screw Attack when I officially at least wasn't. When they relaunched their site in the fall of 2009, they had me on their front page on a little very small little area that said like shows that pwn. And so I was like not officially a feature, but they still were kind of pushing my videos, which was nice of them because again, I didn't know Craig was going to even be doing that. And he kind of did that. And when he featured my video for that Submission Sunday, I didn't even submit that as a Submission Sunday. He just kind of put it up because he liked what I was doing and said, this is cool. I'm going to put it up for you. I think it's cool what you're doing.
Oh, right on. You mentioned Spoonie, and you've just as of recently begun making waves among the That Guy with the Glasses community, mostly due in part to your your crossover review with Spoonie of Highlander Endgame.
Would you say it was waves, really, or just like drips?
Well, you've made a splash, regardless of how big it may or may not be. You've made something amounting to ripples among the That Guy with the Glasses community.
Okay, I'll accept that at least. I think it's just because they're probably like, who the hell is this guy and why is he doing a review with Spoonie? That's probably what everyone was thinking. Because I don't think on That Guy with the Glasses, I had a couple of videos that were featured on their I think their transmission awesome, and then I think one of them was blog of the month or something. But I was never really associated with That Guy with the Glasses, and I guess it was kind of not shocking, but for them to see a video with Spoonie with this guy that wasn't on The Guy with the Glasses, they're probably like, what's going on here? Because I don't know if Spoonie ever did a video with anyone not associated with that site. So I guess I was kind of like the first.
Well, good on you, man. And so yeah, the review that you and Spoonie did was on Highlander Endgame. And how exactly did that come about?
We were both going to Screw Tech Gaming Convention in July of last year, 2010. And so I kind of said, this would be a cool idea. I'll just, send that a shout out to him, and because he probably had no idea who I was. And so I just said, hey Noah, I've seen some of your videos; they're cool. Check out mine. We're both going to be at SGC. It's my first convention there. I have a panel there, and so it turned out it was his first convention as well in terms of having his own panel and doing any sort of speaking. So we kind of just talked about that a little bit. I told him that I'm going to have some stuff prepared. And it was funny because he's like, wow, I don't have anything prepared for SGC. I should get on that and get some videos done or something. So I kind of joked about that with him because I think over-prepared for SGC. I did a lot of prep work for that, for my panel. And so we kind of just talked about that, and then I suggested a video I did because I had seen his Highlander 2 review. And so I guess he was sort of a Highlander fan, and I said, okay, we're both going to be there. Why not do a review together? He wanted to do, I think, a Super Nintendo game or an RPG, and I said, that'll be a little tougher. Let's do something that we both enjoy for sure. Let's just do Highlander Endgame because, I've seen the movie, I know a lot about it, and I know you're a Highlander fan. So I gave him the concept of what it would be like, the background of the story when you see how I actually meet up with him, and he liked the idea, and so that's kind of how it rolled from there.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I mean, Highlander Endgame was a movie ripe for that sort of treatment because just looking, I've never seen it myself, but just looking at it, I have no idea what they were going for.
I don't either, and that was like 10 years of anguish ready to get out for me because I like Noah, I had seen that in the movie theater since I was a Highlander the series fan, a big Highlander the series fan. That was a follow up to the series. Or at least a shoot-off of the series. And it's very rare you see movies that come about from TV shows. Serenity is one, but that's really the only other one I can think of the past 10 years was Highlander Endgame. Mm-hmm. And so, So yeah, it was just like wow, there was so much wrong with it, and it was such. I don't want to say it was an utter disaster, but at least thematically, and then compared to the writing on the series and the movies, it's a huge drop off. That it just was. I couldn't believe it when I saw it in theaters.
Yeah. All right. Well, I suppose we could start wrapping this up, but I have two more questions I'd like to ask you.
Sure.
All right. Are there any games that you would like to review but have already been reviewed by others? Uh, angry video game nerd or otherwise.
The one that comes off the top of my head was, or at least the one that I had planned to do that I was literally starting to write when I saw the review of his post was Superman for the NES. Um, he posted the review. I had thought about it for doing it for a couple of months, and I like Superman for the NES. I really do. It's not the best game, but I was trying to do something unique and different. And so when he posted his review, I kind of got deflated because I was like, oh no, then everyone's gonna think it's terrible, and how can I do a positive review? So that was really the one. And Superman is not a game that most people even knew was on the NES. Other than that, though, I don't know. I kind of veer towards games that really haven't been done to death, but that will change in the future. I don't want to say exactly how, but in the future, I will be reviewing probably at least one game that is a popular game from the NES past, but kind of doing it in a different way.
All right. Well, I guess that sort of ties into my next question, which is, do you got anything planned for the immediate future?
Of course. My problem is I always have too much planned. I'm not just even saying that. I have stuff filmed from last year that I haven't touched yet, like meaning a year ago that I haven't touched. So my next review is actually going to be a combination of stuff I filmed like a year ago and new stuff. And then I have mini reviews that I've written, edited, played through, sitting there collecting dust on my hard drive that I have to edit. Currently, right now, though, I just released my MagFest 9 recap, and I'm also going to be doing about 5 or 6 of the Play the Punk challenges, which the Play the Punk challenge was something I set up at the RetroWare booth, which I originally did at the ScrewAttack Gaming Convention last year, where I play random challengers at NES games, but wacky NES games or wacky challenges. And so we filmed about 6 or 7, so those will be coming out in the near future as well. And plus, there might be a return of the Mad Mario Ball in a review. I haven't seen him in a while.
No. Oh, well, right on.
You're probably like, who's that? Only the hardcore Pat fans know who the Mad Mario Ball is.
It's for those who get it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Pat. This has been a real pleasure and a real treat. Yeah, this is Pat the NES Punk. You can find his stuff on RetroWareTV.com and ThePunkEffect.com. He's a super cool dude, and thanks again, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on your radio show. Hopefully you don't cut out most of my rambling.
Well, I'll do what I can.
Okay.
All right. Thanks again, Pat.
All right. Thanks.